and my friends from AbPhab started a project about the history of Barking Park. We learnt about oral history and also how to use video camcorders. The first oral history we recorded was with Wendy, who is one of the staff at AbPhab. People don't the park.
How many people used to go to the park? Oh, I remember it being full all the time. There used to be queues for the Lido going right the way across the park, and people would queue up for half a day. As people come out, they'd let a few more in. And the actual park itself was always very busy as well, because you had the little train over there, which is still running today. And that used to run up and down, and I can remember my brothers going on the train and me running along the fence to meet them at the other end, because it just runs from one end of the park to the other. The Barking Carnival used to go to there, and that was in September, and that used to go from Maysbrook Park to Barking Park. And they used to have all the bands, and the Dagenham Girl Pipers used to be in it as well, and lots of different groups. So that was always a good fun day as well, but they stopped that a few years ago now.
Later, we went to our first reminiscence session at Barking Park Bowls Club, where we met new people and asked them about the past.
My earliest memory was coming over here, I must have been about 7, I suppose, with a friend called Diana who lived in Netherfield Gardens, and we came up Prince George Avenue, and there were all these guns. And I couldn't believe it, because I'd never known the park to be like this. I dare say my mum had brought me over the park, but we'd always come in the main entrance, and Mum probably thought we weren't allowed over that side. And I just couldn't believe all these guns, and the searchlights as well. They used to searchlight for the barrage balloons as well. And all the guns had disappeared. We used to go down the bunkers and wonder what was down there, and muck around, play hide and seek down there.
I must have been about, I suppose, let me think, 4 or 5, and I was taking over the park to the paddling pool. And then a couple of years after that, 7 and 8, I'd go in the big pool and spent the whole day there in the summer. And then if you ever came over at the weekend, there was the bandstand to listen to, which was lovely. And they used to have dancing on the stone and path all round the bandstand. But you used to get crowds. There must have been about 150 people there whenever they had a band on the bandstand. Yeah, that was excellent.
The shops up the top, several shops, like sort of near the entrance, used to sell fishing nets to the children for about 6pence. So,
always near.
And a bucket if you wanted it to put your tiddlers in, if you didn't bring a jam jar. And you could see the children crouching over the lake to see, oh look, there's one there, I've got one there. And there were all these bottoms sticking up, and you felt as though you wanted to go.
Knock them all in at dominoes.
Oh, it was a real hobby, that was, fishing.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
A few weeks after, we had another session at the same community centre we go to, Kingsley Hall, with the Leicester Elders group. It was really nice to meet older people from our community, and we had a good time. What kind of things did you like to do at Barking Park?
Well, mainly I used to take my children over there, my 4 children, in their, in their groups, and then we meet other mums with their children, go in a swimming pool, which we would do practically all day, if the weather was nice.
And one particular year at Easter, when I went, it was lovely weather, then all of a sudden it started snowing. Easter. And they had to put me in foil. I remember that.
We decided to have a day out in the park with the older people. It was a bit cold, but we enjoyed walking around with them and hearing their stories.
When I was a little girl, there was where the level crossing is on the railway, there used to be an entrance there with a gate, and it was called Fenton's Gate. It used to go through into Park Avenue, and I used to cut through to go to school when I was that this high with my mum.
We also met some very friendly animals. We then went back to the lodge house to warm up a bit and to do some more interviewing.
After my dad came from the war, he was an apprentice in the greenhouses. That's where he first started. And then he obviously progressed and he became the assistant park superintendent for the borough, which incorporated all the parks. And actually this house, he came here by default really, because it was the superintendent's house, but the superintendent could foresee there could be problems with people being locked in the park. So he chose to live in a house in the borough that was donated by the council. And my dad lived here, but it was the best day's work they ever did because I had the park on my doorstep and I loved it and lived here for 21 years. I actually learned to ride my first bicycle in the park. Me and my brother used to stand outside here and he stood on the stood behind me and he said, "I'll hold the bike, you pedal," you know. He said, "You don't need stabilisers now." And I said to him, "Are you still there, Leslie?" He said, "Yes, I'm still here." And then his voice got fainter and fainter. I said, "Are you still there, Leslie?" "Yes, I'm still there." And when I turned around, he was standing by the gate and I was 60 yards up the road. But that was my first learning of riding a bicycle, when I was about 7 or 8.
I remember being in the park on my bike and the park warden going around on his and being shouted at, "You're not allowed to ride in the park, get off the bike," and wheel it through, you know. But we were brought up that like police and park keepers, anybody who told you anything, you obeyed them. So of course, when he's saying get off your bike, you've done it. You didn't sort of ignore him or whatever. So you minded them anyway, sort of thing. Yeah. I remember the boats. We'd been on the rowing boats, Dad rowing. I remember the paddle steamer. And at the far end of the lake, I remember there used to be a sectioned off area where they had miniature boats, sailing boats or motorboats, that sort of thing. I remember there was a fair as well, and one year, back in the 60s or 70s, the fair came, and instead of the fortnight, because when they finish here, they go into their winter quarters apparently, and this particular year it came, and it rained solid, and they were here for about a month. Yeah, we thought they were never going to go away. It's because they couldn't get the vehicles had sunk down into the ground. They had to wait for it to dry out and harden up before they could get them back out, and so.
My earliest memories was from a young child because I literally lived about 10 minutes down the road from Barking Park, and we weren't a very rich family, and so some of my memories coming Barking Park was have it like a day out. Because you had the train rides, the boating lakes for the boats and stuff like that, and it used to be pretty cheap, whereas a lot of other families would sort of like spend a day down the beach or something because they had a bit more money. But for us it was just really coming round here and playing on the trains over at these swings and on the boating lake with my parents and my brothers, climbing trees and getting told off and stuff like that. I remember all the conker trees along the front, along Longbridge Road. Used to come up and get carrier bags full of conkers and stuff like that. I was a train fanatic like most young boys were, and I used to just sit on a train, go up and down, up and down, up and down. It does seem funny now because literally you're on it for about 3 minutes, it's not a long journey, but I think being a young child it was just the rush and everything else, and from what I remember I do believe it was a miniature steam engine as well, so it was just one of them amazing feelings and think, I love it.
Yes, when I came off night duty, after a night's nursing, I used to go over to the Lido, and there was hardly anybody over there then because it was usually about 9 o'clock in the morning. So I used to enjoy a swim for as far as I can swim over the Lido, and the water was quite cold as far as I can remember, but then that used to wake me up, and then I'd go home and I wouldn't be able to go to sleep because I'd be wide awake. But yes, it was good over there, and of course the water was nice and clean at that time of the morning. That's about all I can remember about the swims in the park.
My dad was, very meticulous about the park. Horticulture was his love and his life, and living in this park was just like a dream come true really to him. But He worked for the council for over 40 years until he retired, and thoroughly enjoyed his job because flowers were his life, basically. Yeah.
I like going on the slide and the swings and running around. I like going on the swings, the slides and playing it games and playing tennis and stuff.